こんにちは。青座のママ手箱です。ちょっと数ヶ月前の動画にはなるんですが、イギリスのどちらかというと、おそらく、ちょっとわかんないですけども、保守的な考えの、番組になるのかなと聞いてる感じでですね。えー今、世界で日本というものはかわいそうな国になっています。世界からは、実はかわいそうな人々というような見られ方をしております。それがすごくわかる動画だなと思います。まあ、動画の内容としては、まあ、望んでいない外国の方の移住に対して無理やり、押し付けられているというような動画を潤んでいる。売る、あの、日本をですね、日本がかわいそうということを言っている動画になりますので、海外の方は今、日本をどう見てるかということがすごくわかる動画かなと思いますので、見ていただきたいと思います。ちょっと、えーっと、チャット GPT での直訳になるので、なんかちょっと日本語としては違うかなと思いましたけども、ちょっとニュアンスで、これちょっとなんだろう、意味わかんないと思ったところはですね、ニュアンスをでちょっと判断していただけたらと思います。じゃあ、共有します。えーっと、
Japan, known for being culturally homogenous. That's what most people know Japan as, other than,
Yes.
having nice food, very orderly and tidy cities, being
Fast
very
trains,
polite, fast trains.
panties in dispensing
That
machines.
was only one machine, to be fair.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was.
I just assumed they were everywhere.
It was just journalists blowing things out of proportion as they do.
Yes. Okay. I mean, I think as a country, you're allowed one panty dispensing machine without getting a bad reputation.
I feel like that's
Yes.
the one panty quota.
Yes.
I can agree to that. And yes, they have recently had a little batch of multiculturalism, and I'm going to look at how it's going because I covered it once, and I'm going to cover it again because it's already gotten worse quite quickly. But before I do, it's worth mentioning Island Magazine is in its last week now of being for sale, so make sure to pick it up before the end of the week. Otherwise, it is gone forever and you'll never be able to buy it. It's a great magazine. There's some really great articles in here from lots of famous people. You got your Carl Benjamins, you've got your Dr. Nima Parvinis, you've got Dave Green, you've got Stefan Molyneux, you've got Rorig Nationalist, a few other people that I don't recognise, and you've even got a few Lotus
And every
as
time
well.
we do one of these, we say, "Oh, it's only going to be available for a certain amount of time," and then we stop it, and then we get literally hundreds of people emailing us saying, "Oh, I missed it. Can I buy it?" No, you can buy it this week. You don't email us. Don't send us hundreds of emails after it's done.
Yes, you will regret it. Also, there are mugs and T-shirts as well, limited time as well. So get more you can. But anyway, Japan's debt to GDP.
Oh, that's quite high, that one.
Yes, and supposedly, I'm just going to read the first part here, really. The government debt accounted for 218.7% of the country's nominal GDP as of June 2024, which is obviously quite high, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit of a problem because your GDP growth rate needs to be double whatever coupon you're paying on the debt, which, considering it's like 4% on the debt, means you need to achieve a growth rate of 8%, which even China couldn't do in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of screwed.
It's bad news for Japan.
Yes, I mean their problem is they got poor demographics,
Mm-hmm.
and they're basically their boomer generation, their large generation came a generation early. So
So
they're where we are going to be in 20, 30 years.
could you say that Japan needs to be on the good side of people who lend the money, say the IMF?
Yeah.
These sorts of people, they want to help Japan, but with some additional clauses. Like,
I have never seen the IMF actually help somewhere.
no, of course they don't.
Yes.
So here's an article from the IMF: empowering women could boost fertility, economic growth in Japan and Korea. So this is a pretty feminist argument. I mean, in Japan, I believe men and women are regarded as equal before the law. So what is left? Oh wait, it's disenfranchising men, which is the thing that got many of us where we are today. You know,
And by
feminists of
empowering women,
2015.
they presumably mean by getting them into office jobs and out of the home.
Yeah,
where
it's discriminating in favour of women above men, despite merit.
Yes,
is what I would imagine.
Which then results in women having to earn a salary to justify the place they live, and therefore can't afford to have children.
So because they're in a lot of debt, and these NGOs and organisations like this are using this to leverage their political agenda on Japan, you're starting to see articles like this. Is Japan, this is January of this year, finally embracing immigration? And it's not that the people in Japan wanted it, it's that the international elite have pushed it upon them because they had a problem, which was they've got a lot of debt to GDP, and they've leveraged this problem to impose this upon them, lest potentially even worse consequences.
I mean, there always has been a little bit of immigration to Japan. I mean, normally it's temporary. I mean, I know people who've gone out there and lived and taught for 10 years or so. And apparently it's a bloody wonderful place. I mean, you can just leave your bicycle unlocked outside a major train station and come back days later and it will still be there.
That's called foreshadowing.
Oh, is it?
Oh, you've presaged something. That's a good setup. Thank you for that. So it's also worth mentioning, in Japan's countryside, century-old firms learn to embrace foreign workers. So they're even trying to get foreign workers in the countryside. This is the New York Times covering this, which should bring alarm bells that they're doing the same thing that's happening in, say, the UK, US, all the other European countries, where they're sort of just circulating third worldists throughout the entirety.
Third worldist, is it?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, well,
who else would it be?
Because, I mean, I was kind of hoping it was going to be people from other high... Because Japan is clearly a prime example of a high-trust society. So if you bring in other people from another high-trust society, if you want to bring in Danes and Swedes or something, I can see that working.
British people, perhaps?
Yeah, but if they go down the Infinity African routes, they're going to get a different outcome.
Somewhat prophetic, yes. That is exactly what's going to happen. And in fact, they're also getting Chinese as well. For many leaving China, it's Japan, not the US, that's the bigger draw. So, obviously, you don't need to be a student of history to know that the Chinese and the Japanese tend not to get along very well.
Well, the Chinese have very bad manners. And you should see them eat.
Very messy. What?
And you should see them eat as well. A lot of them don't even close their mouth when they eat. Not the Hong Kongers. I like the Hong Kongers. They're great. But mainland Chinese...
Well, I remember I was looking at... I got offered a university position in China and I humoured it for a little while. And then I read that it's common to find children allowed by their parents to go to the toilet inside simply because they don't know that it's wrong. And I was just like, right, no, gone.
Yes.
Nowhere near. But it's to the point where here are skilled visa holders. So obviously they're not the ones causing lots of problems, but it surpasses 250,000, which is up by 20.8% compared to 6 months ago, which is a massive increase.
So 250,000 skilled, Westerners? I mean, that doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, well, it doesn't necessarily divulge who they are, but what we can see is here are the number of foreign nationals living in Japan from 2014 to 2023, and you can see a clear trend here that is slowly ramping up to more and more foreigners, and that is the number of residents in the millions. So just raw numbers.
It's not wildly out of control yet. I mean, it's
not.
Okay, a population of whatever it is, like 90, 100 million.
I think what was it, 125 off the top of my head?
Yeah, I mean, we get their total allowance of foreigners in 2 years, and that's their total. So far, it's not so bad.
Yes, but that's only because it's just got started. I'd be very curious to see what 2024 is and whether it's going to be a massive line shooting straight up. So let's see what this has brought them, shall we? So Here is a story. 2 African migrants were arrested at a hotel in Tokyo for stealing 34 million yen in cash. And they say, here's a nice despite statistic for you. Despite only being 0.02% of the population, this is the 3rd time a black person has made national news for crime in Japan this year. Because these sorts of things do not usually happen.
Is it possible that no matter what the first percentage, the second percentage, they're always 50% of crime? I don't know.
I think those 0.02% would have to be even more industrious than their Western counterparts, to be honest.
Yeah, but the Japanese just don't commit any crime, so...
That is true.
Well, the Asians, when it comes to crime, it's all sort of gambling related and drink related.
It's like financial and...
Yeah.
They're not really the kind of crimes that people take exception to as much. So let's have a look at, say, some of the nightlife here. And you can notice
That's in Japan.
That's Japan. A distinctly American-looking scene here.
It looks like Philadelphia or something.
I know, there's even people
oh my God, they're
twerking.
On this... Oh, no.
Look at what has happened. Here we go. Loud black women have found Japan.
Oh, no.
Look what you have done, world, to the poor Japanese.
When I think of Japan, I think of those beautiful temples and the cherry blossoms and the tea making ceremonies, and now it's fat women twerking on the street.
It's worth mentioning
with
as well,
fistful of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
The Japanese almost killed my grandfather, and even because of that, even considering that, I still feel sorry for them. Obviously, it wasn't all of them, and the people alive.
Was that the same grandfather who was almost killed by Churchill?
It was the same incident, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
The Japanese that...
it was a pincer movement between Churchill and the Japanese?
Well, Churchill wasn't explicitly on their side, but he may as well have been if you're on the HMS Repulse, yes. But anyway, here is another statistic here. Here are crimes versus how overrepresented they are. And apparently Africans are 2.57 times overrepresented, and the next best overrepresented are the Chinese and Vietnamese. And then it's South America, North America, Europe, and then finally Oceania at the end.
Right,
underrepresented.
I don't believe those numbers for a start, because...
It should be higher, shouldn't it?
I did a segment a couple of weeks ago on the FBI crime stats with Carl, and in the US they are 11 times overrepresented.
No, it's similar to
so I can't believe
London as well.
I can't believe they are only 2.5 times overrepresented, but maybe that's true. I don't.
Maybe you need a critical mass, because the funny thing is, in the US they're about 12 to 14% of the population. It's the same for London, and that's their section, their cross section of the population. In London, 63% of gun crime, about at least over 50% of knife crime. And the same thing for murders in the US. So there is an obvious pattern here. And yes, there's also Kurds as well. Here they are just fighting in the street, surrounded also by other minorities as well. They're just having a wrestle. And there's a big crowd of people watching it. They're all, non-Japanese. And this is just going on a nice, orderly Japanese street, which to my mind seems sacrilegious. And they've had their share of Muslims. Here we are, a bunch of Muslims doing some sort of Muslim ritual through the streets of Japan, in the rain, doing some sort of, what is this, self-flagellation thing? I don't know.
I mean, it could be just a bad dance.
No, I think this is one of their religious rituals. I don't know.
Okay.
But there is more. Here they are, parading through the streets, not really respecting Japanese culture. They're not really integrating, are they?
They're not seamlessly fitting into their environment. They're kind of belligerently
taking over.
Taking over, yeah.
Almost like they have it everywhere else. They're not willing to integrate because they're culturally dogmatic. They want to impose their culture on other people. That much is entirely obvious. Here is a Kurd just releasing fireworks, or I don't know, a firecracker, a flare, something like that, just on the street for no reason.
When I go to a foreign country, I try and make an effort to,
Be respectful.
yes, be respectful and fit in. These folks aren't doing that.
Yes, and on the darker side, so this guy, Pakistani, yes, there are Pakistanis in Japan now, 25,000 of them in Japan now. He was convicted of sexually assaulting a Japanese schoolgirl on a train.
Yes.
Because, of course, the Pakistanis have earned their worldwide reputation for being some of the most prolific, how do I put it, scumbags.
Enjoyers of young girls.
Yeah, and it's the same wherever they go. And yeah, here's another one as well. Chinese man stabs a Japanese woman to death at night in Shibuya in Tokyo. This sort of thing hardly ever happens in Japan. Again, another preventable disaster. And here is another one as well. These are Cambodians, and they were arrested for stealing copper cable from solar power generation facilities in Koshu. And apparently their resident cards had expired, but instead of going back to Cambodia, they stayed and decided to steal copper wire, like our very own homegrown drug addicts in, say, Britain. And they don't need to put up with this. If you have your culturally homogenous country, everything works. If you invite in foreigners, they do stuff like this. They take liberties, they steal, they assault you, they do all of these the things that have just happened. And also, whilst all of this is going on, the Japanese abroad as well are falling afoul. So in Belarus, it has detained a Japanese intelligence agent, and he was basically milling about around, I think it was a train station or something like that, some form of transport infrastructure, and they simply just didn't realise. If I translate this for you, they're talking about this guy getting detained in Belarus. The man detained in Belarus is clearly a traffic nerd.
I can believe that, actually.
Yes. Samson is also nodding his head. And here we go. Here's another one saying about the man arrested for espionage in Belarus. The act he is accused of, such as taking a huge number of photos of infrastructure and collecting rail tickets, sounds like he's a transport otaku, not a spy.
So I didn't realise the Japanese had that as well, because we have train spotters in this country, and I remember a story a few years back of one of them went to Russia and just stood there staring at trains all day, and the Russians arrested him, and when he explained, "I just like looking at trains," they thought it was such a palpably absurd explanation that he was therefore obviously a spy. But no, we actually do have people who just like staring at trains all day long, and it seems the Japanese mind has that sort of thing in it as well.
It's almost like the Belarusians and the Russians just can't conceive of being a nerd.
Yes.
And I think that might
They're
be
just
what
like
this
riding
is.
bears and drinking vodka.
But yeah, I think that's the most likely thing. And to someone in Japan, they'd think, why are the Westerners doing this to us?
Right.
Like, it's obvious this is what is going on here. Why are they being so mean to us? And this is not helping, the foreign reputation either. So what is actually being done? Well, they're having to take measures to change the visa system, which, these are new rules to target people overstaying their visas, which is now a problem, which never used to be. They've also automated airport immigration for foreign arrivals to make it easier for larger numbers of people. And it's worth reminding people that Japan is a high-trust society. They don't lock up their bikes. And now they've had to create promotional material to encourage people to lock up their bikes, because it's not enculturated in Japan to do this. And I mean, I never used to lock up my bike where I grew up either. It used to seem ridiculous that someone in my neighbourhood would steal it. And now they're having to do this because their nice functional society is becoming dysfunctional.
Well, I mean, Connor told us his story of how he went to Japan and he left his phone in a cafe in a train station, and then went off for the day, realised he'd left his phone but he was on the train by then, so he just assumed that it was a write-off, got back to the train station he originally departed from, and it was still there in the cafe. After in a major train station, just been left there all day and nobody touched it. Do you want me to try doing that in King's Cross?
Yeah, well, that's London for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, where I grew up, that would be relatively normal. People hand stuff in. I remember being in school and handing in a £10 note. Just that's just what you do. You be a good person.
Yes.
It's not hard. That's how things work, and how, you know, things are better for everyone that way. But alas, so there's also this. So this is a Japanese politician known for dressing up as the Joker, and he called his online supporters to join him on a patrol to protect a station from its foreigner problem. And then a bunch of left-wing anti-racists turned up and tried to block him and stop him from doing it. And he was upset because it's just like, they're using violence to intimidate me, and this is bullying.
I wish I'd been there, because I'd been like, no, I'm a foreigner and he's right. let the Joker man carry on.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that this sort of thing is going on in Japan now, because this sort of thing happened in the West as well, initially. We're a bit beyond it now, and they've introduced laws to stop us doing anything to stick up for ourselves. And, of course, Western problems require Western solutions, and there's an increasing veneration for a certain American politician by the name of Donald Trump.
For those listening, a statue of the God Emperor is being wheeled through Japan.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not exactly sure of the context of this, but from what I have heard...
Who needs context?
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah, let's just enjoy it. But it is worth mentioning the Japanese still do send people back, unlike America and Europe. Yeah. Here's an African saying, I don't want to go back, you can't make me, and they're just ignoring him and making him go anyway. They've got like 4 people, got him in a hold there, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to send you back. There's no debate about it. Well, you're going. Yeah. You're not staying here. And he's just like, no. But this is what you've got to do. If they're let into your country, you've got to send them back. It's as simple as that, Japan, and that's what you need to do.
If they force their way in, you force them out.
Exactly. So, international capital has forced this upon Japan, and I think it's evil. They should resist it. And now the Japanese are joining the fight for the survival of their civilization, along with Europe and North America. I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're doing, you can watch our series Lads Hour on the website, where we have lots of fun and talk about silly things. And if you want to see all the other things we're doing, you can always follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.
はい。ありがとうございました。これはもう、イギリスの、メディアというか、YouTube なのかなっていう感じではありますけれども、ちょっと、チャリンコは盗まれると思います。鍵してなかったチャリンコは普通に盗まれると思います。なんなら、サドルだけ盗んでいくやついますからね。あれなんだろうと思います。なんでサドルだけ取っていくねんっていうのはありますけれども。海外の方からすると、もともとやはり、西洋、ヨーロッパだったりとかアメリカの方が、こういった、移民というものに、問題に、なった経緯がありますので、まさか、言うと、日本が同じ状態になっているということにびっくりしているというようなことを報道しています。はい。海外でも、やはり、なんだろうな、日本がかわいそうと言っていた通りですね。これに言うのは本当に海外でも問題意識を持って、多文化共生についてはなかなか難しい話だったということになっている状態であり、やはり入ってきたら戻すということは大変困難なんですね、実際。 嫌がりますし、乗りませんし、彼らが戻ろうとしても、結局日本というのは島国になりますので、飛行機になんとか乗せないと返すことができない。車で国境線をブーンというだけで戻すことができないのが、日本になりますので、この多文化共生ですね、本日8時から大泉町の、群馬の大泉町の井田さんにいろいろとお話を聞いてみたいと思っております。全国の自治体の課題であり、何かわからないけれども、移住者が増えることがすごく不安な、何が起こるのかということが不安な自治体も多くあるかなと思いますので、本日のですね、8時から、えー大泉町の井田さんのとの対談をさせていただきたいなと思っております。はい。まあ、このような形でですね、今、全国的には、全世界的にですね、まあ、とある方としては、今、日本はかわいそうだというような目で見られているということを知っていただきたく、ちょっと、この動画作ってみました。はい。というところで、今日のですね、3月3日、ひな祭りか。はい。の、今日の夜8時からですね、対談して、を予定しておりますので、よろしくお願いします。ありがとうございます。